everyone. Well, recording work? Hey, we got it. So thank you so much for joining us. Welcome. I'm Catherine Wygant Fawcett, the Executive Director of the Institute for Family-Owned Business, otherwise known as IFOB or IFOB. We have Brooke Stewart, our Director of Communications, with us too. She's running our tech today, with an assist by Priscilla Hanson-Mahoney from Blazing Trails Coaching, who's also a facilitator for our Next Gen groups. We have Julie Spagnardi from Bootstrap Marketing, who's been assisting us with our new website launch and the logistics today, so thank you. Members of our board, one member of our board, Josh, raise your hand. Thank you so much for joining us today from Clark Insurance. We're so excited to have you join us in person and on Zoom. I want to thank our sponsors from Maine Biz, and they're not able to come today, but I have a little message from them. So for those of you who may not be familiar with Maine Biz is Maine's premier statewide business news source, delivering news, analysis, and information about Maine's business community via its website at mainebiz.biz. Through e-newsletters, events, and their award-winning flagship publication that is published every 2 weeks. Maine Biz has been informing, engaging, and connecting the Maine business community for over 25 years, and they're a big partner of ours, so thank you. We also want to thank Seth Weber and his team from Barry Dunn for giving us this amazing space and our tech support. We'll be recording this program for later viewing. We'll also share the slides after the program and some other resources. We want to make this an interactive program. If you're on Zoom, hi, please send us your questions in the chat feature and Brooke will relay them to the audience. If you were here in person, please raise your hand and we'll call on you. As many of you know, the IFOB is a nonprofit that helps family businesses succeed as they fuel our local economy. We're offering over 50 programs this year, and this is my famous little hierarchy chart. Green is good, everybody can come. There's lots of programs and lots of things going on, and I have those. I'm just going to sneak it there for a minute. We have them out front. So many of our educational programs are hybrid, and they'll be right here and in Zoom. We also have many fun social events, like our Women's Wine and Nine that sold out, and we let the guys in for the scramble. I think some of you are playing for that. That's on July 11th. And then we have our Family Fun Festival. So we put this out. Last year, the only day it rained in the drought was our Family Fun Festival. So we could not bring the bouncy house, but we have a rain date for this year, which we might need, considering it's been raining nonstop. But hopefully the sun will come out then. And it's for all ages. There will be adult beverages, lovely food, live entertainment, giant Jenga, bouncy house, s'mores, lots and lots of fun things. So come join us for that. And then we have our Maine Family Business Awards. So this is our big brochure that we create. We're very excited this year to have our awards at LL Bean's new corporate locations in Freeport. It's absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. They're the largest family-owned business in the state of Maine, so they're going to host us, which is really nice. We will have Maine Cabin Masters, who were at one last year as our speakers. We have Amanda Hill as our host. It's a really fun night, but it only really gets fun if you guys nominate family businesses. So that's going on right now. So we have oops, we're going to see that flying around. We have a flyer that's flying around the room. And good catch, Francis. So right now, nominations are open. You can go to our brand new website. That's quite lovely. And they don't need to be members to be nominated. Many of you here have been nominated, and David won last year for innovation and technology. And if you're not a member and you fill out the application, you get a free membership to the Institute for the rest of the year and 2 free tickets. If you nominate them, they know that you nominated them and recognize they're excellent. We had 191 nominations last year. We had 32 semifinalists. We narrowed down to 25 finalists. And then nobody knows until you come to the awards night whether they won, because it's announced live. So I always say I try to make grown men cry, and they do, because they don't expect to win. So it's a really fun night, great celebration. It's October 18th, so please join us. We've done a complete overhaul of our website. Please forgive us if there's a few little glitches, but we think it's going really well. We have a new member portal, which you can do job postings, podcasts, articles, events, and more, and tie in with other members. We also have the hierarchy chart that I showed you that have dates and things. All of our programs are for all your employees, so please invite them to join us and anyone else that you think might benefit from it, even if they're members or not. As I said, green is good, anybody can come. So we also have, what do I have here? I'm really ahead of myself. So now we're going to kind of kick off our how-tos with Francis. And hard is soft and soft is hard. We have Francis Everly, Senior Leadership and Organization Advisor from Price Associates. We have Leanne Lowe, Human Resources Manager, YOLO North America. We have David Nemi, Franklin Printing. And we're not sure, is Jen in the audience, Brooke?
Online.
Online. Well, it's her birthday today. I wish her a happy birthday, but she's not here. It's my dad's birthday. He's 87 today, so I'll go be doing that. Yeah, he's 87 today. So our next how-tos, we're gonna take a little break over the summer because we're gonna have lots of social things. So we're gonna have the Scramble, we're gonna have the Family Fun Festival, and then we have the awards, and then we come back in November on family business structure, and we'll have some more information like coming along. Towards the end of this program, we ask you to please fill out a quick survey. If you're in person, we have some fun door prizes. And for those on Zoom, we'll put it in the chat. Your feedback is really important to us because it's how we build our programs every year. So now I'll turn it over to Francis. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. I don't know if Catherine said this and maybe I missed it, but we're using the mic because of the recording so that there's good sound. Yeah, so welcome and happy summer, right?
It is.
Yeah, finally we're here. At least we have a nice day. Yeah, and Catherine already said what I do, and we're just gonna do a quick introduction for each of us, but we're gonna walk you today through what I mean by hard skills and soft skills. Actually have you think about it for your business, what it means for your business, and then we'll end with some applications. So that's what I'm going through with the agenda right here. Applications are where you can use it specifically in your business. So why this is important to me? Well, this is really what I deal with every day. And what I mean by that is I work with companies, individuals around improving their human performance. So both coaching and team dynamics. So it's just about the interaction and the people in the organization. And it is something I see all the time, and it's really very simple. And you probably experienced this yourself. So let me just give you a short story. You might have been in a meeting, or maybe you were leading a meeting and there's some directions being given and people are listening and taking notes, and then the meeting breaks up. You come back a week later.
Catherine, you are off mute.
Okay, so you come back to the meeting and you say, okay, so where are we now? And people kind of give you the blank look. They actually didn't follow the directions that you thought you had given. And you're like starting all over again. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. Happens all the time. People continually sort of miss the messages. So it's really around communication and the skills that are involved. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So that's why I wanted to do this session. And I'm really glad to be here with Leanne and David because they're bringing some real practical in the business experiences. So I'm going to turn this over to Leanne.
Thank you, Francis, and thank you for having me here today. I'm glad to be here. I've been in HR a really long time, seen lots of changes in HR, but as an HR manager at Yodel, I can tell you how important it is for any organization you want to find employees who are going to be present in your organization and actually demonstrate behaviors, and we'll talk more about that later, that really coincide with your organization and in the organization's values and culture. And it doesn't mean that you have to have your values written on the wall or documented down, but you as a leadership in your organization, you know what you want for values and people. So it's really important for me to make sure that I'm helping our employees who are hiring people, coaching people, developing people, that we know what we're getting when they come through the door. And we want the idea is to retain them. So it starts right up front. So we'll talk about that in a little bit as well, but I'll give you an example. So part of some of our values at Yodel, a couple of them are, we value innovation, we value adaptability. So you really need to be able to adapt when we need you here or there, when things change in manufacturing. So we had an individual who'd been with us quite a few years, 5, 7 years. He really was a great worker. He knew his job. He worked on one station, we have stations. But the idea is that at Yodel is you cross-train, you learn multiple different things. So we want to make sure that we have succession planning. We want to make sure that people backing up the person who's at station all the time. And this person did not want that. This person was just like, I do a great job. Yes, we know you do. And I just want to stay here. I don't really want to learn anything else. And I don't want to come up with ideas and innovative things. So obviously, I mean, he's a great worker. We don't want to let him go. So what do? I mean, work around him? Well, no, you could gradually squeeze in, gotta back him up, and just little bits and pieces that we would move in and say, just give us a break here so you can train this person. It really came down to his last 2 weeks. He decided, he was like, I can't do this. It was too many changes, and we left very amicably. He was great. He said, we really need you to train this person now in the next 2 weeks. Everything you've known for 5 to 7 years. And that's not what we want. You really do want a plan. So for us, it's really important that we identify that right up front. So we'll talk more about that later, but thank you.
Thank you. I'm David Deemy, General Manager of Franklin Printing, and I was pleased that Catherine asked me to participate today. I think this topic of the hard versus soft skills has become ever more important over the last few years. I think we've all experienced the change in the workforce and the balance that people like to have between home and work. And it's important that where you are at your workplace, and whether it's a small business, like my family business has 50 employees, give or take a few, and you sort of forget sometime that how important HR is, especially if you have longevity in your team, and then suddenly something changes, and now you have to think about, well, why does someone want to work here? What are we doing that's so special and that should encourage them to want to join our team? And you have to articulate that to someone new, because a 20-year employee finally decided to retire, which happened to us not that long ago, and we ended up having doing sort of what I would say somewhat of a nationwide search. I mean, there's not a lot of people in Maine that have experience with print production. There's only 3 companies in Maine, so I either steal one from someone else, which doesn't usually work well because they'll just steal someone else from me. So, you start to think about, I'm speaking to these people that have been in other parts of the country, and they want to know about Maine, and they want to know about the dynamics of your company and your family business. So that's very relevant to articulate to someone. And so I think that everyone should think about this regardless of the size of your company. And I think Yodel is in manufacturing, much like we are. Their company is much larger than theirs. They have the luxury of having a full-time HR person. We don't. I mean, it's something that I do, but also use resources. We're fortunate. We have a new member here from the KMA, which we're glad they joined the Institute, but that's who we use. And they're great because they're there to help us when we need someone. And so look for someone like that. I think you'll see as you go through this, there are a lot of resources, whether it be internally or externally. So make sure you pay attention to it, because you really do need to think
Yes. Thank you. So let's get started. And I neglected to welcome the Zoom people. I don't know how many people are out there, but I can't see you. And so I wanted to just give a little bit of introduction as to why the title and where this is going. And so this actually comes from a quote of Tom Peters, and that may resonate with you, it may not, but he wrote a book almost 20 years ago called Search of Excellence. And that was widely read, it was really encouraged, and what he said was, it's your people. What gets your business going is your people. So he just recently wrote another one saying the same thing. He said, I can't believe I'm doing this still. And we often forget, and what's really been highlighted for us is there's this transition, and David was just talking about it, since the pandemic, but it's slowly occurring before that, but it really just kind of pushed it over, which is that people are much more concerned about who they are, what they're gonna do, and what the business can do with them, not necessarily for them, but with them. And it's just been a different shift for people. And as an employer, what do you do with that situation? And Leanne talked about the situation where she had a good employee, but he wasn't able to do the new things that they wanted him to do. And so what are those skills? How do you do, encourage innovation, for example? So the pandemic really has increased this. And I don't know if you've ever heard Kevin Hancock talk about this. I think you probably had him here. He's been doing this for a while. I met him when he was at the Maine lead program and we were together, and he was talking about at that time. So I don't know to tell you how long ago that was. But there's success it's the people that really get you moving, and the success comes from there. So we used to say, how do we get work done? Right? You have your team together, how do we get their work done? Really what you need to be asking in some ways is, how are you doing? Where are you? What is going on? Yeah. And research is telling us that psychological safety, which is really about mental and physical safety, feeling safe to be included, feeling safe physically is a priority. And if you have that, then people are going to be much more successful and productive at work. And that's the soft skills. And I hate to use that term, but that's one everybody seems to recognize. And it really is hard to do those things, and we'll talk more about that. So I just want to see a show of hands, and the Zoom people, I don't know how you're going to do this. But if you think about on a scale of 1 to 10, right, on one end, the high end, is going to be your employees, and this is an average, your employees are going to be highly engaged. On the other end is highly not engaged. So where would you say your employees are? Your average, highly engaged, not highly engaged. So on the 10, which is the highly engaged. Okay, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, anybody down to 1? Yeah. Well, good. That's really important to know, because you need to know where they're coming from and how they're acting. And is it the hard skills or the soft skills that really keep them there? And that's the question you need to be thinking about. And we're going to be talking about that further. Okay. Going the wrong way. Sorry about that. So I just wanted to just give you a little bit about this in terms of why it's important. So it increases engagement. If you've got a culture that's positive, it'll help you attract talent. People will want to be there. It'll help your brand because people are talking about, oh, this is really great. I want to go work at Franklin Printing because they care about me, or I want to work at Gallup, right? Customer experience because they're happier, right? Fosters innovation and financial performance. There is data on improving financial performance. So here's some more data, just kind of card this idea, right? That employees who would feel that their positive experience, they're going to have 61% more eager to improve. If they're feeling good about their position, they're going to want to improve, right? They're also 13% more likely to want to collaborate with other people. Right? They're not going to go into their shell and just do their job. And they're 2 times more likely to want to have a meaningful impact that job, that role, that company is really helping them. So that's sort of the grounding of this and why we think this is important. And now let's drill in a little bit more into what actually we're doing. And this is where you get to participate. So at your tables, and I think maybe we'll have to move up. Eventually, no. And I don't know how you want to do this, you can maybe work in pairs. And I want you to list for you, what are the most important skills you think your employees need? And so you've got about 5-7 minutes to talk about that. And then I want you to prioritize it. Which are the most important? Now, you may not be able to come exactly to a consensus, but do the best you can in terms of, say, top 5. Okay? And the Zoom folks, we're gonna put you into breakouts, and you get to do the same thing. Now, the only thing is, you won't see this slide in your breakout. So quickly write this down or use your phone and take a quick picture, and then you'll have it. So we'll take about 5 or 7 minutes, list the skills that you want to have your employees, what they need. Okay? All right, we're off.
So,
I do. I have them right there. They have 1 and 10 hours, 1.5. Per quarter. 1.25. I like.
so we are interconsultants.
And whatever.
Thanks for coming yesterday.
I understand.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Communication.
Yeah. Did you say discipline?
Yes, discipline.
So.
And I think,
And,
Le respect, on l'a pas
Like,
dans le
another word that I feel like discipline is like grit,
great, yeah.
like the perseverance.
Show up and
and I like someone who's proactive.
Yeah.
la disponibilité.
Integrity.
And I'm gonna go get some more coffee, so I can be a little more wired up.
You need to be.
That's
good, proactive.
60,
Yeah.
whereas 5 years ago, it was 25, 30.
So you're being,
I've only been with them for just over 2 years.
that's actually a fairly long time these days.
That's
A lot of people have
July.
had 2 jobs.
Yeah.
It's the same word.
You said just yourself, yeah.
Proactive would be great. I think we're reactive.
In the sense of like honesty.
Honesty,
So
sales people.
For every organization is different.
On our end.
I think
Sorry about my English, I'm just,
I'm such a big.
I do my best in English.
Account managers, account managers.
Hi, guys.
So
We always have to be very, be ahead of.
Ponctualité, comment on dit ponctualité?
Days out, discipline.
Right.
but we're seeing a lot more.
But a lot of our hours.
I mean, like, communication.
So we're trying to.
Like being able to collaborate.
Yeah.
Facility to communicate,
Yeah.
facility to be flexible.
Yeah.
So I like introduction, we had our recruiters started, they were telling us this story. This is the classroom, very fancy, sort of like hundreds of.
Or you come up with skills. I would say like respect. That kind of falls under.
He just joined our.
No, respect is also.
A lot of it is.
Sorry.
Thank you. That's all time you. That's amazing.
I'm in a.
Gosh, Chalmers
Yeah.
Clark.
There's a lot of
What
seats.
really took off.
It's a lot of seats.
They're all
It's like Hammond and Hickok. That's like
Right.
the heart of
Yeah, after that, it's like, okay,
So
don't
another.
disturb the. Just let them sleep.
Yes, we talk about
No, and then they always.
That's it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
From the youth, but there's.
We're talking about that.
La colaboración. Being teachable.
So. You were
You wouldn't think that would be a risk.
I know, you are right.
Julie and I.
We're not just you brought a computer that's going to make sure you're qualified for the position. No, interest kind of our agency.
And I think it's something that.
Collections to hire. Hey, Richard, your appointment's tomorrow. We do the same thing with interviewing. As I say, it's kind of like free level labor. Everyone's taking.
I guess this is under flexibility.
I think we have some. We're gonna get them up. We're gonna get
I
them.
just wonder if we need to wrap up.
Ça c'est moi.
Checking in.
Ça c'est moi.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
That's when you heard. Time when I just got.
That's what works, my best.
This is me.
You're good at it, or this one?
Very good.
Flowers.
Do you have like priorities up high?
I forgot about that.
Now I know. I think that discipline.
So how many do you have?
First one.
I know, we're 10-7. Because I had, there was actually 8 people that were
You get the people that are so young.
There's 10 of us connected. There was 8 actually.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I think we just kind of just silly.
There's 4 or 5 right now. There's 4 people that are talking, but there's.
Ultra like.
Yeah. So I would say right
They can intertwine it anytime.
Ah, okay.
Name opposition. You listed out again, right? So tell me what you're about. Then I'll share.
So I'm gonna bring you back together. Keep going.
Sorry, hold that up.
We have one group still prioritizing.
Oh, yeah, I think it's necessary.
And I want to write.
It's hard to prioritize.
It's interesting.
They're all the same.
They were supposed to.
I didn't turn it on. The food breakout.
Oh, we're supposed to just prioritize 5?
Yeah, I just.
Oh, we have 5.
Okay, you ready? That's good?
Ready.
All right. So I'm gonna write them up on the chart here, because we're gonna use this in a few minutes. So I'm just gonna go each table, give you an idea. One of those things. Okay, perfect. Leanne's got it. So how about here? You got one?
Yep. One of our first ones was like discipline, like perseverance.
And if you already have that one, give us another one.
Problem solving.
Okay, problem solving. Great. Thank you.
Reliability.
Reliable.
Communication came up,
Back here.
online
Oh.
communication.
And
Integrity.
communication for the Zoom folks. Thank you. And then also
Integrity.
integrity. Thank you. We'll go once more around.
Let's go leadership.
And then last table.
Organized.
Okay. And if you look at your list, now you look at this list up here, how many of you had something on your list that didn't get shared, but it's up there? Or is there a duplicate with what you've got? Yeah, okay. So I'm not gonna say these are most important. To me, they may be most important for you, of your business. And each business is gonna have a slightly different sort of level of importance for different skills, depending on what the job is, right, what you do. So let me just flip the question again and say, what are the ones for your leaders? What are the skills for your leaders? So let's just go 2 minutes this time. What are the important skills for leaders?
So Zoom people.
Okay, that's what the Zoom people back in.
Yeah, what's other?
Yeah. Steamroller.
There isn't a thing on that list that.
You're right, I think for example, companies from the web, this is what we see.
Oh, yeah, decision making.
I was just looking at the job before, now you're expecting. So that's what.
Time management,
yeah, that's what.
We had to be at the.
So subsequently.
Yeah, that's tough now.
They're
So
so great.
employee.
As
well.
I have
Our employees.
because they have different interests.
Discussing skills in relation to your leaders or your organizations, are they still different or are they similar? Skills, integrity, and of course, strong leadership skills.
Good.
Yes.
All right, let's just take a look and see, Leanne will be our writer, scribe again.
Good, nice.
Let me see what they are. So we'll just, we'll go the other way around. How about here? Start here. Just one.
Positive.
Okay, positive. There, the back.
Listening.
Yeah.
Conflict resolution.
Conflict resolution. Back here.
We have a few on Zoom.
Oh, sorry, Zoom folks.
Yeah,
Can't see you.
yeah, right. They should have the same skills of communications, integrity, and of course, great leadership skills.
Okay, so duplicate of 3, communication, integrity, and leadership. Just gonna test Leanne's skills. She's right. We could spend a lot of time unpacking what does it mean by leadership and what it means by integrity. We'll do a little bit of that in a minute. Yeah. Okay,
Heard one down here. I think it's a good one.
which one?
Courage.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. And we'll just do 2 more.
Collaboration.
Collaboration. And then here.
Decision making.
Good, decision making. Okay. So our list is a little longer, but there's some duplicates. Okay. How different are they than the list you just did earlier?
We had some discussion that a leader should have every one of those things. Everyone.
Okay,
I
Those should be the basics.
there's not much of a difference between, being a leader and those you lead. There shouldn't be anyway, I think, but
great.
that a leader should have every one of those things.
So I forgot. So for the Zoom folks, and I'm
So I
sorry.
wasn't allowed. What I said was, which is odd for me. Don't give me your microphone. That's the worst you can do. I'll start telling jokes. So what I thought was that a leader should have every one of the skills displayed in the initial sort of big post-it there. And so, yes, that was that. Thank you, Francis.
Great, thank you, Richard. Yes, sir.
Those plus.
I forgot, I'm sorry, I assume folks, that you can't hear. Any others that you want to just make a comment about what you see to the list, the two lists? Richard kind of summed it up. He said, you gotta have both. Would you say the employees need to have some of these?
For them to explain that, you need to have both.
Can you say that again? Through the phone.
I'm saying that need to have both, skill. Because there's a challenge every single minute, in any single time. And more conflict and more resolution, and you need to have a courage, how you can make a decision making.
Yeah, and I've heard from employers that they want to have their employees have the courage to ask questions or courage to challenge the way in which things were done, because that way you innovate. Right? So I just wanted to take a look at this in terms of your business and whether these apply exactly to everything within your business. They may or may not, but they are sort of out there. And how do you train people to do this? That's really the challenge in all of this, is how to think about it. First of all, is being aware that they exist.
Yeah.
And then begin to figure out how to do that. And so I want to transition to Leanne, talk a little bit about what they're doing at Gallup.
So I have a list of some essential soft skills. This is not all of them, but I think what is really important that all of us understand is that the hard skills, we can teach those to a person, right? So we can teach them how to use a nail gun. We can teach them how to use a sander. Any of the power tools, I tell people that in the interview process. We can teach you that even if you're not gonna fail the interview if you say you've never used a hammer. But would you like to learn how to use a hammer? Because we can teach you. What we can't teach to some people is reliability. That's kind of built. The soft skills are those set of personal attributes, right? They reflect one's style, their communication style, their work style, their ethics, how they interact with others, their personality.
Do you see, excuse me, that when you're interviewing people and some of these things are sort of required of the job, do you see a lot of would-be employees or interviewees saying, I don't necessarily have these, but it occurs to me that if you're living, if you're alive, you do this in your own home, you do this with your children, you do this with your family. So are you noticing that people aren't necessarily equating their life with what they can do on a job? And do you find yourself having to explain that to them?
We do find that we have to explain the question of what we're looking for. Although I tell our team leaders when they're interviewing is, well, don't give them the answer, but be prepared. Know what do you want for an answer?
When you ask someone, or if you do, tell me about yourself. What do you expect to hear?
I want to hear the adjectives that describe what we're looking for at work. We want somebody that's reliable. We want somebody that is willing to change quickly to something, be adaptable. We want somebody that's going to be innovative and creative. And there's some people who say, I don't really like that at all. And my example for this was that we had an interviewee that, I've had lots obviously, but an interviewee that we told them that, so how we teach these skills, right? Because you can teach them. You teach them what you're looking for, right? So for reliable, for us, you need to be on the line at 6 a.m. Not 6:05, not 6:01, 6 o'clock. So what reliable may be to each of you is different. Maybe it's we need you here each day. Okay, but you didn't tell me I had to be here every day at like 6. You know, I could be there at 8, or, you know, you can tell me. So I tell people, have your answers specific as to what are you looking for? Because when I first started doing one, hey, they said they'd be here every day. They said they'd be here at 6, like, I didn't ask them that. But that's really important. So you want to get to that. Now, we'll talk about different questions later, like how to get to that. But one was, we talk about what these skills look like in a bit, but the interpersonal skills and how you want people to react in various situations. And that's really important for us. So the interviewee that we had said, so we have standard operating procedures, and they're very clear. They have, you know, not graphs, they have pictures. I like them because they have pictures, arrows, everything is important, but they're very clear. And you could follow that and not have any problem learning how to do something on the line. So as interviewee, we ask one of our questions is, if you had a situation where you found a way to do something different, better, what would you do? I do it. Okay, well, that's not our process. Would you go ask somebody first? It gets better, you want to get it done faster, you want to do it. Okay, so we explain the process of how we do it, just to see, would they be adaptable to that? Because people can adapt. You don't want to just say, oh, nope. And this person went on, he just buried himself. He's like, I would just throw out those SOPs. He said, because you want to get that thing done as fast as you can. Okay, that's not really our answer, but thank you anyway. So that didn't really work. So next slide though, we can talk some more about.
Yeah, so back to you. And what I'd like you to do this time is pick 2 of these. You can pick any 2. And tell me, what does that look like? Talk about what does it look like in terms of behavior? Leanne just gave you a clue on one of them on reliability. What that looks like is showing up at 6 o'clock. Right? So just pick 2 and put it into what I call a behavior. What does it look like? What can you see if someone is doing this? So I'll give you like 3 minutes. And so the Zoom folks will go back into breakout.
3 minutes, you have good time management skills.
Working on it, I'm working on it.
Starts now.
I'm working.
Right.
So just pick 2.
Two off.
Yeah, I know, it's got a lot, yeah.
Oh, 2 off.
Yeah, just
I
2.
do this exercise with my clients too.
Football,
Tell me what
what?
it does.
Yeah.
So,
And with-
Honestly, there was this. Where you're from,
you know, so I actually.
that's where I was getting those answers.
I do that. Habits.
Yeah.
Behaviors.
Just looking for answers. Oh, we've had.
Oh, whatever.
You guys pick whatever you see.
You like.
Yeah.
Or wait, no, that was, well, did it matter?
I mean, even the ones that have been there for 20 years.
So.
And the trickle effect, I think, yeah, like, it's really struggling. But. Thorough for us, it's. It's.
Yeah.
Knowing expiration dates. Yeah. And it's trying.
So.
Anybody want to start?
Organize no expiration date, you're gonna get most time.
Pick a couple.
Yeah.
Isn't there a lot of that?
No, but.
Like you don't have a client that doesn't look like
You know, if you go into the client, yeah, we have, so I have.
share information.
And Kelly, yeah, yes. So,
how would they like
Yep.
just like how else to track them?
So typically we'll try to put our account manager.
So
We'll do it at 130 days or so. Just say, okay.
you can't hear us too well, Jeff?
Yeah. Sister service.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
and so, did a pre-review. So we discussed some several strategies.
So we'll have one more minute and then wrap it up.
That TikTok.
Management or patients, how would you be looking for that?
Oh, we gotta do two?
Disrupted behavior, how would you?
It's different, as we said.
You guys pick it up. I like. Are you able to do that?
All right.
I know when we have employees who are more confident, it's easier to approach.
Yes.
It's easier not
Not to, yeah.
Yes.
or like,
Okay, that's an honest answer. That's fine. Yeah, we're gonna go back to the neighborhood. All right, thank you.
Okay, let's wrap it up. And I just want to see some examples, or hear some examples. Then we'll have to close the breakouts, the Zoom breakouts. So just tell us the competency or skill that you chose and what's it look like.
oh, are you looking for me?
Well,
We chose positivity,
Okay,
and there are a couple behaviors that we wrote down. So they're more easily approachable, and they're visibly very passionate about what they do.
okay.
Is that correct?
What does passionate look like?
I don't know. He said it.
Does it mean like that they're hugging something?
Yeah.
Or that
So
they-
here's another thing, when you hear a lot of words that are used over and over again, I think they sort of lose their meaning, I mean, there was a time when awesome meant something, not that my sneakers are awesome. But, and for me, passion has become one of those words, I think, and it may just be semantics, I don't know. But I think you have to have nearly an uncontrollable emotion for work.
Yep.
Irrespective of what it is, if you have to have that, I want to work,
Yes.
and realize the importance of work. And I think if you're lucky enough to identify that in one or two people,
Yep.
and even, if you're interviewing them and they may not be right for here, but they may be over here because you get to, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Of course, they're talking
Oh.
Well, and what is Richard's relating to is not every job is perfect for each person. And if you can find the right person for the right job,
Our job, yeah.
that's really important.
And what can.
I just wanted to say one thing that I think is important. Sorry, Lindsay is your name. Yeah. So Lindsay made a comment about, I don't know if that's the right answer. I don't know if everyone could hear her, but there isn't a right answer. Because it depends on what your business is. So if you're running a retail store, positivity is very important. You're constantly greeting people. If you look at Yodel and my company, we're in manufacturing. It's good to be positive, but we certainly have a different list than that and different behaviors that we're really concerned about, like decision making. What's that like? Because we have safety concerns. There, we were just chatting about it, big, very powerful machines doing somewhat dangerous things. So, so it's important to think about it from obviously the perspective of your business. So there definitely is not a right answer. It's all about what you're doing. Yeah, so.
Yep.
Can I
Great.
elaborate on the passion piece?
Sure, because passion is one of those words that people use a lot.
Yeah, so I work a lot with seasonal businesses and we do not expect people to be like, I love landscaping so much, I'm gonna do it for life. You know,
No, we just want to have them like it for the day.
I'd rather see them be passionate about something.
Right.
You know, whether it's their life, whether it's they're getting ready to go to college, whether they're getting ready to do something next step. And they're using their employment to get to another level and be passionate about that. I do not expect retail workers or fast food workers to be, I mean, some are, I don't know what they do to Aroma Joe's employees to make them so freaking happy.
They're all coffee.
It's the free coffee. But I don't expect every seasonal worker to be like that. But I do expect them to to have passionate about something, you know, it might not be the work that they're doing, but at least be on fire about something.
That's a great point, and it actually is part of the second question, but we're not gonna do that now.
I'm going the same thing what she
Yeah.
said, because we cleaning business. So I forget that some people who love what they do is not passionate for that.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, today you can tell them, I want this. If tomorrow came, we go again, you say, okay, now 2 times, give it up.
Yep.
Passion to that, but it's good.
And, you know, the next part of this is really what is driving people to do this or to want to do this. And the cleaning example is there was a gentleman who was a janitor for 25 years.
Yeah.
And the way he saw his job was he was helping people.
Yeah.
He didn't think about it as cleaning, he was helping people with the environment that they're in. So if they have a value for helping people in that context and they see it, it's a way for them to get grounded.
Right.
In the business, whatever it may be, but they may not. So, okay. So, and the reason I wanted you to kind of look at this is how it fits for your business. Because it is going to be a little bit different.
Yep.
Yeah. And I did raise values, but we won't go into this, but we all have certain values. And Leanne has some specifics from Yoga, which I want her to share, so you can see what Yoga does related to values. It's how you get people hooked into the company. I like the view.
Mainly just skip over the behaviors of effective employees, 'cause I think we've really talked about that quite a bit. So there's a slide in there that just talks about behaviors of effective employees. And I just tell people, they want to be there, they understand the big picture. And I get asked this question a lot, why do people have to understand the big picture? But it is really important because they need to know why their job is important. And those people that are on the production line are exactly the reason why our end result, our stoves that are out there being sold, are of high quality and they need to know why, and they cost more. But it is because of quality, but they need to understand that they might be a cog in the wheel, but they are so important cog in the wheel. So we start the process of understanding our core values right in the beginning from our orientation. So there's a couple of slides in there that are from our orientation that talk about communication and empowerment on the first couple of slides. And our commitment to that as a company. So communication, we all know that we can all do better at communication. That's just hands down, we always can do better. But what we also do at Yodel is make sure that we're consistent and that things are sustainable. So if we are having, we have monthly, all company-wide meetings. We have them every month. We hear from everybody from finance to R&D to sales, to sales, and the president of our company on how are we doing, what's going on? They hear the good, the bad, the ugly. But it's an open discussion. People can ask questions and we encourage them to ask questions. People aren't afraid to ask. So communication is one of our key core values. Empowerment is a big one. We We want employees to be fresh when they're there. We give lots of time off, so we have a big work-life balance push. We do give, we want people to spend time with their family. We understand that there's some people who want to work 60 hours a week and there's others that want to work to 40. And we don't want people working 60 hours a week. We want people to enjoy their time. So that's really important for us to get that across to people. But and so some others that are in that empowerment are, you know, educating others in manufacturing, because we know manufacturing in the state, it's been difficult to find those people. So we really work in the community. We encourage you know, schools to bring their teams in, their students in. We educate them. We're doing recruiting right from the high schools who might not want to go necessarily to college right away. They want to just learn some skills. So, and then a couple more, our values, I talk about innovation and creativity. In our R&D department alone, we have about 80 years of combined research and development experience. But we also, as part of our creativity, that's going to tie into something I'm going to talk about a little bit later, is the idea system. So we can only get better by having people who are working on our product every day. They're the ones that can identify where we can get better. Yes, R&D makes our products come up with great technology, you know, patents and great things, but they're also not out there building 100 of them. So we have a what we call our idea system, and it's part of our performance review as well, that they have control of that behavior. So I submit ideas. It might be, why am I turning a wrench upside down on this line 10 hours a day for this particular stove, when couldn't they just come up with something better than that? But it takes more than just saying changing the screw where it is. It's put in the idea, tap R&D, they come out to the line, they're part of that resolution. If it can be resolved, it can be changed. And that person gets to have that communication and interaction with R&D and seeing how can engineering has to, just because of the safety of our product. That's how most of what happens in our business happens, is from the identification of things that could possibly make a difference. We have, not everything is an idea that's going to be put through, but that is a big part of who we are. I will say that I'm not going to talk about all of them, but respect, I talk about that right in our interview. Like, we absolutely will not tolerate poor behavior. We will not tolerate anybody lashing out at somebody, speaking in an unnecessary high tone voice to somebody, degrading anybody. We will not. So, have I, in my short time there, almost 5 years, I've only had to walk a couple people out, but they're like, I didn't even get a warning. I'm like, what you did was absolutely inappropriate and we will not tolerate it here. So what's important is tying in what you teaching your employees what those soft skills look like, and knowing what the difference is. Because if people don't know, if your employees don't know what that looks like, they really don't know what about time management, what that really means, and they just see it like, no, they say they, you know, time management is important. They see that, you know, respect is important. Oh, so I can't use like this language, whatever. You need to tell them exactly what does that look like? What does that behavior look like? So that's really important for us.
Pass this on.
So this is, I guess, a couple things. One is our companies are, like I said this a couple times, are very similar because they're both in manufacturing. But I think what's important too, which I brought up earlier, is that we do all of the same things that Leanne was just talking about. We just don't have it as formal as this, but I think it's important that everyone thinks about it. And somewhere have a list, maybe you don't have a PowerPoint or a book that you're giving someone, but you should at least have those topics either like on your computer in a Word document, just as a frame of reference, no matter how big or small your company is, because it is super important. So what we have on the screen here is this started as a way for our sales team to articulate who we are. Some may call it an elevator speech. And then as we developed it, I was working with a consultant with it, and we're going through it. And then as you read it, you sort of realize like, oh, well, this is more than just that. So it talks about who we are and how we behave with each other and with our customers, because our customers are really the most important thing. Without them, any of us would not have anything to do. So I think if you read through this, I don't really need to read it, but I think everyone can see it, that, there's some behaviors in there, like we have the word empathy. And using the word team, which I think is important. It's something that I really focus on a lot when I'm talking with any of our employees or in meetings is I always use the word we. I don't say I don't identify another person if it's something good or something bad. We're making things, we always have mistakes. We're humans. It's inevitable that at some point in time, someone is going to make a mistake that may impact what we send out the door. But even in those communications, when we're understanding what's going on, I just did it. I say we, like we did this and we're going to fix it this way. And even when I speak with our customers, I still do that same thing. It says, we made a mistake. I don't say what department, it doesn't matter because we're a team. So we need to fix it together. And that behavior of mine, I think helps everyone understand, because I've seen over the years, it's starting to stick. There's still a few people that, say my room or my computer, and then as I'm talking, I don't think you need to sort of scold someone and say, hey, you should say we. You just, as you're speaking, work it in. It's like, oh yes, in that area, yes, we did this. So that, I think for us, the team approach, because we're all doing something together, and there isn't a person at our company that can do something alone and they're done and no one else has to touch it. We all have to be part of this. And so I think if you can take some time to even do something simple like this, I feel like this is simple. It actually only took 5 minutes. It's just a matter of, like we were just doing, like talking through it. And whether you do it as a group or you bring someone in from an outside firm to help you, but I think it's important to take a day, an hour, 5 minutes when you're driving to work, you're driving home, you wake up in the middle of the night, whatever, however your life is, if you think of something like this, write it down, because I think what we've seen over the last few years, you realize how important it is, especially for retaining employees, because people want to feel like they're part of something. And I think for us, sometimes it's hard to share some of that positivity because we don't, our customers are expecting a certain thing, and so they get it, so they don't say, oh, great job. So when we do get someone to do that, we make a point to really blast it out to everyone so they can see it. And we try to explain what we're doing and why we're doing it. A great example I can think of where you can instill some passion is one of our customers is Abbott. And I'm proud to say that we actually printed for them the very first literature for the COVID test. I woke up at 4 a.m. on a Saturday because in the middle of the night, they gave us the artwork. And that very next Sunday, we delivered product to them. And if you remember, like the next day, it was sitting next to the president at the podium. And what we did was inside that box. So, and it was amazing to see the people, like we had a whole team of people that showed up on a Saturday morning at 6 a.m. and we're sitting in a room together, which wasn't a good idea. Yeah, and talking, and you could hear the passion in their voices, and it's because I think that we were sharing what we were doing, and I didn't say that we have to be here tomorrow at 6 because we have to do this. It was like, this is why we're doing this, and we all know what's going on, and it was cool to hear people say, oh, I can't believe I actually contributed to something like that. So in communication as a leader, sharing as much as you possibly can. I spend a lot of time walking around just talking to people about things that have nothing to do with work, because you need to have them feel, like they're part of your family. And even if I need to talk to them about something, I'm more apt to lead with something else. Like, oh, how was your son's baseball game, or or something like that. And then you can get into the work related things, because they feel better about it. Or making, we have I try to, make people laugh, because sometimes it's stressful dealing with someone when they have a deadline and they're frustrated with you and they're aggressive when they communicate to some of our people, and it's more important. It's like, tell them a joke, make them laugh, because, at the end of the day, this isn't life or death stuff. We're not surgeons. And so I think it's important to have, a positive environment. So.
So we'd like to wrap up here if we can with some specific, very concrete things. We're gonna have to go through it quickly, but you do have copies of it. And so I just want to take a big picture look at, if you think about employees now, it's almost like there's a system around, and you can think about how you're gonna take care of them. So in the short term, on this axis on the left-hand side, there's the material offerings, salaries, incentives, bonuses, all those sorts of things that are very practical. That's what people do want, of course. And you also, in short term, that helps bring them in the door, is the connection and community. And that's just what David was talking about, which is you see them, you talk to them, you get to know them, you get to connect them with other people, have team retreats, all those sorts of things. And those are things we've been doing for a while, right? Where it begins to get different is on the right-hand side. This is the longer term, keeping them in your business. So growth and development. So what opportunities do you have for them? Advancement, courses, certifications, kinds of things where they're learning more about what they're doing so that they can continue to grow themselves. This is a real incentive for younger employees. They want to know what's the next step for them. It doesn't mean they're going to leave. I can give you some stories. I won't because of time. We're a construction company. They're builders. You can imagine, I don't know if you're building or of other kind of work, Richard, but they had, the benefit plan, which is material offering, right? They also had healthcare. They provided certifications. They gave them coursework, and people did not leave. And sometimes they would, these are carpenters, sometimes they would leave, they'd come back because they realized it's not so good other places. And so that's just another way to think about it. And the last thing is the values, the purpose, the passion. We were talking all about that. Is if you have it for your company, others will begin to see it. So those are just really quick way to think about the kinds of things you can offer or provide for employees today. So then now go to the end.
I'll go through these quickly too, because I want to get through as much as we can, get David to speak some more too. One of the things that we really do spend time on is you want to get the right person in the door initially, so, and then groom them and grow them, let them grow, because that's really important to us as well. So we start right with the interview process, and I allow the team leaders can pick out what are those questions that they feel are important attributes that we need to have to work at Yoga, and I help develop them. I gave my handout was a handout example of just one that we use with behavior-based interviewing, which can be situational. The idea is using situational or behavioral-based questions that will relate the candidate's answers to their past experiences or predict future behavior. So if you trying to ask questions that can't be planned answered for before they get to interview, that's tough, because there's a lot of training out there for how to train for answering behavioral questions in an interview, so they can say whatever they want. But the idea is get them talking about a situation and continue asking them questions after that. So you might start with one that's tell me about a time X, Y, Z, that you were happy with the way things were going, and what did you do? And then they tell you, because they prepared. Then you say, oh, well then, what happened after that? Where did that person go? I mean, because then they might get stopped with like, oh, well, I don't have my answer prepared for that. I only have that first one prepared. I don't have, we're not supposed to ask more questions about the same thing. I mean, you really want to dig in as deep as you can, really. So that's one of the things that we use. There's a rating, I ask each team leader on the back, there's a list of competencies and behaviors that I ask them, and everybody interprets these differently, we all do. So it's important, we usually always have 2 people do interviews, at least. And then they don't share these and they turn them into me, and then after we've interviewed whatever amount of candidates, 4 or 5, we'll go back and see, well, what did it add up to? And that should be, I've used this in many other places that I've worked at, and it's worked very well. So it should be your best candidate. When you have that many candidates to choose from, I'll leave it at that, because in the last 3 years, we haven't had that many candidates to choose from. And one of the other things that we use, one of the other tools that we use is our employee development program. And this is a performance-based and behavior-based program. It's for just our direct labor, so just for those who are hourly. It's a paid program to acknowledge not just their skills, to reward them for their knowledge and skills, but also their good behaviors. So why is this important to employees? Because we're hoping that this attracts people. This is an extra monetary bonus that they get twice a year. It ranges anywhere from 2 to 8% that they are in control of. So there's it's a means to keep them, retain them, provide career tracks. There's a one-on-one part to this as well, just a 1-pager that asks questions about, where do you see yourself in the next 6 months? Where would you like to be? What would you like to do? And we have a strong promote from within program. We really want people to move. We've had a lot of people move from manufacturing, driving a fork truck, and they're now our accountant. And they never thought they'd ever do that. Or same thing from our paint booth into our marketing manager. It happens, and they've created a career over 15, 20 years. So the next slide is showing you what are the 10 categories that we rate on that can be anywhere from a 0 to 5. And again, what's important is that who's doing the rating, right? Because we all know that managers it's just normal, can be biased. This is my great employee, so I'm just gonna give them 5s. Well, no, so our process, and we're in it right now. So when I get back, they're waiting for me to get back to finish them for this week, so they get paid next week, their bonuses. But and I gave an example on the next slide too, as well as like, what does, in this case, I don't want to use accountability. What does accountability look like? So how do you score a 3 or a 4 or 5? And the team leaders they're the ones that are directly filling out this assessment, they have to give examples. They have to give specific examples. If somebody is not meeting, is maybe not doing great in one area, then you're going to give an example. But it shouldn't be a one-time, they've only done it one time and now they're going to get 2. No. So every single one of these reviews, so there's about 60 of them, the operations manager sees every single one of them, and every one of the 10 categories, signs off on them, asks questions, we send them back. The team is saying, I disagree with you, because the safety manager is involved. What has he observed, or the safety coordinator observed about this person's safety? It can be anybody else is involved. As a manager, myself, if there's been employee relations issues and there's things happening that the team leader didn't indicate, then I would say something so that everything comes after the operations manager. I get them all, and I review every single one of them in all 10, and I send them back. So if the operations manager didn't pick up on something and I did, I send it back and say, I disagree with this. I don't think that they should be getting this high of a score. And it really does work. Our average, we tell people when they're hot. So when I train them, when they come in the door, part of orientation is they get a whole I don't want to say it's a whole hour, but it should be more than that even, just on employee development program. And they get a copy of every one of the ratings and what it means, a 0 to 5 for every one of the categories. So they know exactly what they need to do to get. And that's what's most important. People should never have to guess, like, I wonder how I get a 5% here, or I wonder how I get a 6%. We tell them right up front, submit ideas. If you don't want to submit ideas, then you're gonna get 2 or 0. But it's okay, it's only affecting you. You're still gonna get your paycheck, but you're just gonna maybe get a 4% increase. But our averages has been in the last 2 or 3 years, 6%. People really do want that and they will work for it. So
Is this on an annual basis?
twice a year.
Twice a year.
Yeah, right before 4th of July and right before Christmas. So it's a nice little bonus for them. So.
So for Thanksgiving.
Don't start. Not going. This is like a month-long process. It's like, usually I'm not out of the office on like, the week or two before bonuses or whatever. So I've been out a couple days this week. I'm like, oh boy, they're waiting for me to get back. Like, we need to deliver these. Okay.
Super. Thanks, Leanne. Yeah, so she was being very generous with her time, at least for us. Figured out that to do. This last slide is another tool. And what I wanted to show you here is this can be used for competencies and behaviors in terms of hiring. It's a tool that we use, and I'll start up on the top right-hand corner of this, and you've got 2 of the copies on your tables. It's just an Excel spreadsheet. I'm happy to send it to anybody who wants to take a look at it. But for a position, you get 2 or 3 or 4 people who know that position, and you say, what do they do? So you list it out in this list. The next column, it says traits, characters. What's the characteristic that you want in somebody for that position? So you list that out. So maybe it's sounding familiar to what you did earlier today, right? You identify the things that are specific to that job. And then the competencies, the same thing, you go through and list that out. And then key relationships, who are they talking with? What kinds of relationships do they need to be able to handle in that particular position? Anyway, and then you have key outcomes. You take that, and that group takes an assessment. It takes about 15 minutes for that position, and you get what I call a job profile. So here's the ideal candidate for your particular position. And you can use these over and over and over again. When you get down to, if you've got 2 or 3, you have an option of candidates. You can have them take it, and then you do a comparison report. And that's what you get here. And I do all this, or we do all this, so you don't have to do it. All you have to do is this spreadsheet and the quick assessment. And then you'll get a report that says, okay, here's what the candidate said about themselves. And so the bottom right up here, you get a little bit, you can see it says personal accountability, leadership, teamwork, customer focus. Those are things that you said were really important for that job. And then it gives you a rating based on what they said. And then there's some summary and recommendations and stuff. And there's it's about a 5-page report that you get. And then there's this whole other one, which is that fancy graphic thing here. And I won't talk about all the different dimensions, but it's behavior, it's motivation, what gets them going, excited. And then that long lower left-hand corner here is leadership skills. You know, where they are, competencies, these things that we listed earlier, shows you where they are. The benefit of it is one, it helps you get the right person in the right place, but it also gives you suggestions for interviews. So when you call this person back, it'll give you some example questions that you can ask them. It also gives you an idea. So for this person, see where it's yellow up there in those competencies like decision-making and self-serving. That gives you a clue as to what they might need in training if you still want them. Right? If you still like this person, you can say, okay, here's really where we need to help them focus and step up a little more. So it's another tool. Basically, it's what we did here. And then you crank it out and you get this report. So, yeah. Okay. And I'm going to do just 2 minutes on this and then we need to.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, this is a good wrap up of, it's great that we all try to figure out what we want in our workforce. And we identify all of these characteristics. What we what makes it complicated, especially now, is that we have 5 generations of the workforce. And there's a list of like characteristics on this handout that talk about, what do they value, in general, again, because not everybody, we're not trying to say everybody fits the mold of every one of these generations, but what does the work ethic look like? What does the values look like? Technology was a huge one during my HR career, seeing how technology has changed and how it has affected people that needed to change with it. It's difficult for those who are in the older generations, not me myself, but we weren't brought up with a mouse in our hand. And the first time, tried to introduce this to a company that had just had DOS, and these people were older. They were definitely in the silent generation. They're like, they had never seen mouse, they had no idea, and they didn't have computers at home. And it was really hard. So understanding how to communicate with each one of these generations and how to get at what's important to them, work-life balance. Well, for baby boomers and silent generations, like work-life balance, right? No, it was work. And HR was not even, why do you need HR back then? Forget it. My father wondered why I was going into this. We need this. So we need to know how to address all generations.
Great. So let's just wrap up and we'll give it back to Catherine. So when we think about where you are and what you're doing in your company, it's a process, it's a journey. You need to pick up and work from where you are and begin to develop it. So I use this image just to sort of say it's really a continuous activity. You can't just say, okay, I'm done, because the dynamics of people keep changing and the needs, and so you need to understand them. You have to have an awareness of them and yourself and where you are. So I'm going to just ask Leanne and David if they have any last minute comments for you.
Thank you. I think for me, the biggest thing to remember is that, and Leanne just alluded to this, is would consider this HR. HR is very important. It doesn't matter how big or how small your company is. It's 2 people, 1,000 people. It is super important. And I feel like as I've in my 20 plus years of working, and there were times when I thought, I'm not doing it, I don't want to do this. But I've realized, especially over the last 5 years, how critical it is to attract good employees, to grow your company, to become what most of us want to be, right? If you're set up to be a leader, or you want to be a leader, you need to understand how all this stuff works and take the time to do it. And if you don't have time, find someone that can help you. And it's not always free, but it's really worth the investment. It is an investment. It's not an expense, it's an investment in your company and yourself too, for improving yourself. You're gonna learn a lot from engaging with someone that understands it better than you, if that's not what your career path is. So I would say take some time today if you can, or very soon, to remember what we all talked about and look through these slides and the handouts and save them and use them and reference back to them. Especially what Leanne was kind enough to share with us, that's valuable stuff. Really, a lot of time was put into that, and it's very common for all of us. So really look through that and use it to your advantage. Thank you.
You're right. HR is important. However, most small companies, anybody that has under 100 employees, most likely doesn't have an HR dedicated resource, and that's it's totally understandable. I've worked for many small companies and have worn a lot of hats, and somebody though, or several people in your company are wearing the hat of HR. And you say, that doesn't come with the territory. Well, guess what? It does, and you can't avoid it. But I absolutely, 30 years ago, I never would have thought that I would have seen all the changes and gained all this knowledge from everybody. And being able to share it is something that's, I like to do, so, definitely reach out. I could understand, small businesses, they need the resources and it's, somebody's done it. So I know Google's one of the things, but somebody's done it. And it may not be the way you want to do it, but at least it's an example, like how do you get to that? So use your resources, don't be afraid to ask people. We benchmark, not just in HR practices at Gallup, but we benchmark through everything we have. So definitely do that and don't hesitate to reach out.
Great, thank you. And remember, we will make mistakes. We always do, right? Everybody does. Don't beat yourself up over it. Keep moving ahead. Figure out what's going to work for you. It's not really a marathon. Maybe that's what this image is, but it's an adjustment as you're moving along on all the time because people change.
Do we have any quick questions from the audience?
If we have time, it's really up to you.
Do we have any quick questions?
Any quick questions? Okay, well, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it. Thank you, guys. You have your book for your door prize? Is it sitting there? Okay,
Thank you.
so everybody's here. I have door prize for everyone if they want to basket. From the IFOB. And then you have, okay, so if you don't have a name tag or a business card, you can just fold it and put it in here. Did it fall down or?
Do the Zoom people get to participate?
Yes, you can send it to them.
I don't know how you're gonna draw them.
There you go, just fold it in half. There we go. Yeah. And then anybody wants Tabasco sauce? Tabasco sauce. There you go. There you go. Really cool Tabasco sauce. Tabasco sauce.
Absolutely.
Tabasco sauce.
Like perfect for size.
All right.
We don't use it.
Okay, and
No,
then
my house is
you
big
guys
models.
Oh.
No kitchen, so it's
fold
like.
that in half so it's.
Oh.
Yeah. That'll be
Yes, and
awesome.
the other way would be cheating. I was
Well,
thinking the
can't
other
read
way.
it.
Thank you for. Oh, I've been, yeah, thank you.
Do you want some
No,
Tabasco sauce?
thank you.
Take two, take three.
No, my
There you
daughter.
go. There you go.
Can I have another one?
Yes,
Bring
you
one back to the
can. You can
office.
take as many as you like. Do you want some Tabasco sauce? You want your business card? All right,
Next.
so do we have people online, Rick?
Yep.
So, how many?
There's the people left.
There's three people left?
There's one
Okay,
now.
somebody pick a number
There's
from
none
1 to 3.
Now there's someone.
Okay, all right, so we have 2 books, is that what we have?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, you want to pick, Francis? Sure. All right.
2.
Pick 2. Okay, so Michael, you get a book on connected reading.
Thank you.
There you go.
There you go, you have the author here, Francis.